Yes, Kenneth, how are
I'm
you,
good,
mate?
mate, and you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Thank you, mate, for joining us this evening. We'll give it a couple of minutes just so hopefully the chat
No
fills
worries.
up. I do respect that it's a Friday night, so a lot of people might have other commitments. And a good friend of mine tonight, because he's on lockdown in the UK, they have a Mexican night, so they've all dressed up as Mexicans in his house, which is quite interesting. So we'll just give it a couple of minutes and then hopefully
No
people will
worries.
join us. But there will be times throughout the conversation where people will join, then they will leave, then they'll come back. So we just kind of see how it goes. Yeah, and we just start talking football and going through your personal coaching journey slash scouting recruitment journey, which I think will be a good insight to a different part of the game. So as you know, over the last couple of weeks, we've had loads of guest speakers, local, international, national, even a referee. So it's always good to get different people's opinions and to hear their pathways.
Of course. Of
Is that
course.
right?
Sounds very interesting. Sounds like a very interesting project you have started here. So, have had the pleasure of listening in on one or two of your earlier presentations. So I think it sounds very good.
Brilliant, mate. All right, I'll tell you what, let's get cracking. And then what I'll do is I'll try to, after the conversation's finished, this evening I'll try to screen record the interview and also get it back to you as well. So you can always look back on it. And also people that can't make it now, they might be able to watch it back within 24 hours as well on Instagram Live. So Kenneth, like I said, mate, on behalf of Soccer Social London, thank you for joining us this evening. If you could just maybe give us an introduction of your name, who you are, and and then we'll break down your personal journey, taking it back to the beginning.
Yeah. Long story short, my name is Kenneth Santa. Like Santa Claus, and my birthday is on the 25th of December. And my
All
dad's
right.
name is also Klaus. So it's a story I might as well tell to start with because it's something that sticks. So it's a good way to break off the ice. But I am like hopefully many of the guys listening in and also joining this conversation in general. I'm a dedicated football person. I'm very passionate. I've loved football always. When I met my wife back in 2002, I told her that first comes football and then she comes, and afterwards we got kids, and then I had to change the priorities a bit, but I still said that football would be one of the top priorities. So I'm all about football. I started as many people like coaching a second team in under 13 and under 14 and under 17, being assistant coach, finding my
Mm.
way in through the youth academies. And when I started coaching, which is more than 20 years ago, in Denmark, we had very few coaching position on full time. And
Yep.
and it was at that time as it is now, I imagine, for those growing up with the same ambitions as I had 20 years ago, to become a coach on full time, because you have a lot of people who wants the same job and are willing to and able to, because they haven't
Mm.
started their families yet, to commit to full time on a low salary. I have been coaching in 6 or 7 different clubs in academy level, and I've
Yep.
been a scout in clubs as FC Copenhagen, FC Nordsjælland, Lyngby. Ending my last job in a Danish football club was as head of academy recruitment and scouting in Brøndby back in 2013 and 14. Before I moved on
Yep.
to Qatar for 3 years.
Yep.
So
Kenneth, if I could just stop you there. Sorry, Kenneth.
Norse.
If I could just stop you there and then kind of take you back. So, what was your real passion to get into kind of football coaching? Why did football coaching at a young age really stand out for you?
I had the same ambitions as many, that I wanted to be a football player.
Yep.
I think myself, I was quick in mind, but not as quick in my feet as I was in my mind. I had a decent youth career in the best youth leagues. Also got paid a little bit to play. Got a serious injury when I was 16 or 17, where I was also hospitalized for a couple of months and weren't able to play for a year. And it was at that time when
Mm.
I was asked by my former junior coach, on the 16 coach, if I could help him coaching an under 14 team. while being injured. So that got me into the game, and when I couldn't play anymore back in 2002 or three, I swapped my deal with the club and became an at that time under 16 assistant coach for in Denmark the best league. So that was the way.
And in terms of, sorry, Kenneth, and in terms of your coaching experience, was it just straight into football, or was there other opportunities which you developed at a younger age and the transition into coaching that also helped? So was there opportunities for you to work in local primary schools, or was it just solely football? And also, how did it work in terms of your qualifications and the ladder of getting qualified?
Coaching have always been something I enjoyed. So even when I played, that we had in Denmark by the federation, we have had soccer schools in the summer vacations. So I think since I was 14 or 15, I was an assistant coach for the younger age groups, and I took my coaching badges when it was allowed. I was 15 years old when I took, at that time it was called foundation and basic courses, which is now the UEFA C modules, which I think I actually completed the UEFA B in a different model at that time, but before I was 20 years old. So I took the coaching badges quite early, as I first of all wanted to learn and was in a situation where I just tried to do as much as I can and try to say, okay, if this is an option, I'll go. And it also opened my eyes for people in different regions of the country and growing my network already at an early age.
Brilliant. And you did speak about there a little bit on in your career. You went to Bromby,
Yes.
is that correct? And what was that title again? What was the job?
It was head of academy scouting and youth recruitment.
Is that something, obviously, because you've had previous years working within coaching, when you got that job, how comes you went into the recruitment pathway? What kind of sold it for you, and how was that transition from going maybe on the field to scouting, or did you still have a bit of both?
My ambition was, when I started coaching, that I wanted to be the best at what I did, and we were asked at the courses saying, what is your ambition? And I always had the target of becoming the best on the 14 or on the 15 coach in the country. I had kids at a very young age. They're now 14 and 13 and had just taken their candy because it's Friday. Promised to be silent as much as possible, but the hours just didn't cope anymore. So my involvement in coaching were just coming to an end because I was never at home. My kids, they only saw me in the morning, and I had to balance in between being working at a school as a school teacher, teaching soccer lessons, and working for the federation as an instructor, and also keeping a coaching role in the afternoon. So my choice to move from being a coach and also giving up on the ambition of becoming a full-time coach at that time was actually quite easy, because I saw that there was an option of saying that it was, of course, difficult saying if you're the best or if you're not the best as an under 14 level, which you can argue, but my ambition then changed and said, okay, we don't have youth scouting organized in Denmark at that time, and I chose and had the ambition and saying I want to become a full-time scout. And my job before Brøndby was head of scouting, and that was my first full-time position as a scout.
And what club was that?
Lyngby Boldklub, Superliga club in Denmark.
Okay, and then so you kind of had a little bit of experiences before going to Bromley in terms of the head of recruitment.
Yeah,
And how did you find that? And in terms of like geographically, in terms of Denmark and the areas and where the club was situated in, what was the population and how big was the task, or did you find it quite easy because there was maybe a lot of opportunities to succeed in the scouting network because maybe other clubs wasn't looking into the scouting network that time in a deeper light?
I think the little bit arrogant answer was, at that time I was I was probably the only one who was fully committed and focused on trying to build it. We've had some people who were really good at it, but not in a structured way. And my
Right.
ambition, even when I was an academy coach, I was always scouting and recruiting players, just not in the same way, in the same fashion. And as it went in Lyngby, I was the head of the academy in Køge, which is a Danish first division club. When I was approached by Lyngby, who always saw me on the pitches around the Copenhagen area and said, "We want to do this, and we want to be the first club who wants to hire a full-time scout in terms of with the main focus of building the academy scouting and recruitment, as we at that time back in 2011 and 12 we were not at the same point as we are now, but in terms of especially academy scouting, some clubs had full-time position in first team level, but academy level there was nothing. So I was given the opportunity of building both the academy scouting and also helping out in terms of first team scouting with the head coach, who is actually now the head coach of Brøndby, which is quite funny.
Wow, and like you said, you did go in there, and it must have been a bit like a blank piece of paper, because, like you said, there wasn't maybe a lot of structure in place. When you first went into Brøndby, what was your main 3 things that you really wanted to kind of achieve and put in place? Could you give us some information on that, or when you was kind of looking at it and you was going in and it was kind of a blank canvas? What were your main and key focuses for maybe the first period?
Brøndby has always in the past been, in my view, has been the biggest club in terms of youth development in Denmark at that time. It had struggled for several years, and it was in big problems financially at that time when I came in. I was approached and was told about an ambition and a plan of becoming the best club in Scandinavia, and they wanted to build and rebuild. I would like to say, for the respect of the good people, that they wanted to rebuild the academy and make sure that the best talents in the whole of Scandinavia, they would play in Brøndby. So I went in with the ambition of first of all to structure the scouting from under 10 to under 19, which was my main role, but especially focused among the youngest, as those were the age groups which suffered the most. And I was given quite a big budget at that time in terms of hiring part-time scouts all over the country, and I had when I left the job or was sacked, I had built an academy scout team of 12 part-time scouts at that time who were covering the main parts of the country.
Yeah. So you just said something key there, and you said it with a smile. So let's get into it. You said you were sacked, or your time at Brøndby came to the end. Why was that?
We can make a whole different program about this, but long story short was that when I was hired, I was given the responsibility of the academy scouting, and as the thing progressed, new owners came in and put even more money into it, and the ambitions grew, which was nice. But I was a bit caught in a situation where I was doing academy scouting and recruitment, and I was doing first team analysis for the upcoming opponents, which the head coach is now Thomas in Brentford. Thomas Frank was asking me to do on a weekly basis. And besides this, I was also doing first team scouting in all over Scandinavia. So I think I had roughly 2.5 jobs, and we hired, or the club decided to hire, the guy who's now the chief scout, John, who was put in the academy to help me, and was there to focus on the older age groups in the academy. And a month or two after, they also hired a guy called Mellemmand, who was hired as the chief scout of the whole club. And my role just changed from being one thing to being another thing. And saying it now, being almost 6 years ago, it's when you ask me, the long story short was that I didn't fit in the boxes which was left after people joining. So I think I was put in situations which I were not good enough and experienced enough to handle, and things had to come to an end.
Wow. And in terms of, just before we move on, and you had a great transition after from Bromley into the Aspire Academy. When you was at Bromley, who made the decision on players? So, for example, if you went out and scouted a player at, let's say, under 14, who kind of made the decisions on the player? And was there any times where you thought, yeah, I really want to sign this player, but the coaches were against you, or did the scouting network have the final say on who gets signed and who doesn't?
I've always said that that for me it's very important that coaches, they play a big role in terms of the recruitment part. But for me,
Yep.
it also requires that the coaches, they are aware of the quality and the benchmark in the age groups. So if they want to have a say in terms of which players to recruit, they will have had to play a role in terms of scouting, and they will have to have knowledge about the age group. And if they have this, for me, they can play a very big role in terms of the recruitment. If they did not play a role, then the recruitment part was 100% done by me, which, looking back in the mirror now, also put me sometimes in situations where it was maybe looked at as like, this is Mr. Santa's player and not so much the club's player, because it was my decision. But at that time, we were also put in situations where we had the ambitions to be the best, and sometimes the political processes about saying yes or no requires quickly action, and I learned by doing, and I think that's the best answer to it.
Brilliant. And then Kenneth, so your time comes to an end at Bromley, and then you managed to get a job at Aspire. Is that
Yes.
correct? In Qatar. How was that
Yes.
transition from you? So leaving Denmark and then traveling over to the Aspire. How did you find the cultural experiences, the type of players you were looking for with the new challenge? And what was your title at Aspire?
My title at Aspire was football scout. And for those who are not aware what Aspire Academy is a government-run facility, which is we have Aspire now, not we, but Aspire have all the best players in Qatar, which basically means that one day they play in Aspire kit, and the next day they will play in Qatar Football Association kit, because it's the same coaches and it's the same players. So basically, the country has put the best players in the Aspire Academy, and the players are training together 7 times to 8 times a week when they are in the full-time programs. Meaning that the scouting task, which I had to do when I was responsible of the first year I was there, was the under 16 and under 17 age group across both Aspire Academy and the Qatar Football Association. And I ended up by having the responsibility of under 13 and 14, as we had we had a change in the focus of how to do things. We had changing directors when I was there. We started by having Mr. Roberto Olabe, who's now with Sociedad, as their football director, and we've ended up with something else, and we went through. I think we had 5 or 6 people responsible for the scouting department while I was there. So it was an interesting period. I definitely took many things with me from that experience, and and one of the best things is also that I managed to have my family with me in Qatar and give my wife and my 2 girls this experience as well.
Wow. And Kenneth, in terms of working in Qatar, and like you said there, it's a government-run project. Was there a lot of bias and biasism in terms of selection? So, for example, would maybe someone who has maybe a little bit more money and a little bit more wealthy, would there be biases in terms of the decision-making that he gets in over somebody who doesn't?
I can only give you this answer, saying when the scout goes out, it's difficult to watch on the jerseys from where they come from, or from what month in the year that they are born. So you can only watch what you see. I think you find everywhere that you will find people with connections who are able to to ask somebody, say, could you please keep a good eye on this player, or could you have this in mind?
Yeah.
In terms of our scouting and recruitment, the ambition the government, sorry, not the government, but the whole Aspire Academy had, was that we wanted to bring the best born Qatari players into the academy program. In Qatar, you have 2.2 or 3 million people and only 300,000 Qatari people. And in each age group, they had around 450 to 500 players, as it was very difficult to register a football player in the country because they wanted to promote the Qataris and the players born in Qatar. So we didn't have an option to just go around and pick. We had, when I was there was 18 clubs, which I think is now developed into a couple more. With more facilities and more grounds.
The pitch dimensions might be too big. So looking back, do you think there was consideration that maybe they wasn't producing players because of X, Y, or Z?
I think when you ask this question, you have to have in mind when you only have 450 to 500 players registered in each age group for 18 teams, that when you look at the success which the not only the academy teams but especially the Qatar national team winning the AFC, but also the academy teams with the under 19 winning the AFC 5 years ago now, I believe. When you imagine having only 500 players per age group and still being able to compete at the highest level, most of all shows me that if you have a good program with very good people all around the team, which almost as many staff members as players, then you can produce something at a high, in this case, Asian level. And I would definitely say that when you look at the players, from my experience, was that I could, up until the age of under 13 and 14, I could compare it to the best academies in Denmark in terms of the level. From, of course, saying that you would have 3 or 4 teams out of those 18 who was good and decent. But you also had 10 to 12 teams which struggle in terms of level. And especially after the under 13 and 14, in terms of not having so many opportunities to play at a high level each weekend. The ambition of Aspire Academy was to bring in clubs and countries from all over the world to play tri-series. And looking, I don't want to focus so much on the results, but looking at the teams and clubs coming in and the academies, especially the younger academies, were able to play on an equal term in terms of quality and level. So benchmark set, and also compared to back home, was decent, at least up to under 14 level where there were teams to play.
Yeah, and in terms of being at Qatar, and like you said, it was government funded, so that the funding stream must have been quite huge. What did the scouting network look like, and how many scouts did they have to cover these 18 / maybe 20 clubs?
We had one full-time scout per age group. So, and in this case,
and sorry, would that full-time scout, for example, like you said, for one age group, would he still have a network under him, which are spotters or lookers or extra people?
When you had a weekend of games, you would have 9 games per age group, and the staff members we had me as the head scout for an age group, and then we would have the head coach for that age group, the assistant coach for that age group. We would also have the goalkeeper coach, who was full-time staff member per age group. So we would have at least 4 people who were covering, and the structure there was in Qatar meant that, in my case, covering 2 age groups meant that I would first watch one age group, and then afterwards I would watch the second age group. And among the scouts, we would, of course, if the games was played at the same pitches, we would also be covering the next or the games before. So normally on a game round in each age group, they would be playing 9 games. We would have at least 7 of those games covered by scouts, meaning looking at the coverage all over the season. That quite intense.
Yeah, and in terms of your in terms of a scout report, what did a scout report look like in Qatar, and what was it focused more around? Obviously, I understand that different age groups players are going to give you different returns, and you'll be looking at maybe different things in a foundation player than a youth development player. But what was the kind of scouting report like? And how were the players graded if you went to watch a player on a Sunday or a Saturday?
I'm very happy you asked, because I had a lot of discussions with my coordinators about the grading system, because it was one way when I came and it was changed during the process. But it started. We had a scouting booklet which was with information, and the difference between normal scouting and our scouting was every time we came, we would be given the team sheet. So we would have the numbers. Though it was written in Arabic, we would learn the Arabic numbers, so we could identify the player ID numbers and the jersey numbers, and this meaning saying that it would be like every other place around the world, that you would have a number, a name, a position on the pitch. You would have which foot is he, which type is he, in terms of height, but also in terms of physical profile. We did it in different letters in terms of some definitions. We also had a potential grade, and we had a performance grade, and we had comments, a space for comments, and the ambition every time we went out was that we would do what we called a screening report of all the players that had playing time. But we focused a lot on coming 30 to 40 minutes before the game to watch the warm-up. So we would actually have the player profiles in terms of height and weight, and we would also have defined normally the strong foot. So basically, when the game started, we would normally have been given the starting lineup from the coaches if we had the chance to speak to them. So we were sitting next to the 4th official, so giving straight access to front row seat. Which I'm sure many scouts around the world would be happy with.
would love. And in terms of, you spoke about getting there for, and we'll get into this a little bit later on in terms of what you believe in and kind of your rituals when you go scouting. But in terms of getting there 30 to 40 minutes before the game, why was that? Was that also to look at other parts of the player in terms of what is he like socially? What was he like physically, or was it just to see technically how was he dealing with the ball in the warm-up? What other considerations were there behind getting into the game that early?
From my side and my background for doing it is a mix of what you just mentioned. Because people, they would, especially I think coaches from an older generation, they would say, I want to see who's the guy who picks up the balls and who is concentrated in the warm-up, and I want to see who is the one who's sloppy and who is the one who's just kicking before he's warmed up. So for me, it's a mix of all these things, but especially for me, what was important was also to get a feeling in terms of how well prepared the boys were. You would find at different age levels the boys coming straight from the dressing room, walking out on the pitch and being ready to play. But you would also find other age group and other clubs who would be ready 45 minutes before and would be doing a professional warm-up, because one thing you need to understand is as well that Qatar Football Association, they also hire the coaches in the clubs, meaning that you would have an under 13, 14, 15, 17 and 19 level, you would have full-time staff members as well. in the club. So you could get a really good feeling, and you would also, especially from the bigger clubs, you would have the chance to also communicate with the boys how they are, and also give them, especially with the boys just outside of your focus area in the Aspire Academy, because the players you watch is also players who attends the Aspire Academy trainings during the week, because the build up was that the players would train all week in Aspire, and then they would have the last training, which was in this case on a Thursday evening in the club, and they would play the games either on a Friday, which is their Saturday, or on the Saturday, which is their Sunday in this case. So that would be the reasons.
Brilliant, mate. And in terms of, like you said, so when you did document and you formed your report, how did you guys used to then keep a track on players in terms of monitoring again if they were a player of high potential? And what kind of system did you guys use to document?
We had every system available on the market, and in the end we ended. When I came, they did the reports in Soccer Lab, but they found out that what they wanted to use it for in terms of scouting, it was too heavy. So Aspire hired 4 administrative responsible persons. So our process of scouting was that I went out, I made my report in my scouting booklet. I took a photo of this scouting report and sent it to the administrator I had. Following my age group, we would have one administrator would cover 2 age groups, and he or she would then put in my report in Excel. And we had a guy who was really good at Excel, and he had actually produced his own system. So the administrator would put everything in the system on the Sunday, and on Monday before 9 o'clock in the morning, we would have an overview about all the players' performances, and we would have an overview about the players being given a grade 4 or grade 5, the 2 top grades. So we would map them, and we would update our shadow teams based on this information, not only provided by ourselves, but also provided by the coaching staff as well.
Wow, so you didn't really do a lot of admin, did you?
I believe that I did. I had to do some, but I was fortunate to have some good assistance in many times.
Yeah, and it just a brief one before we move on to your next step in your pathway. You said some players might have been graded a 4/5, and depending on if there was a 4 or 5, they would have been classed maybe as a top performer. But in terms of being a top performer, did you guys used to, in your meeting, really deep think what that was in terms of whoever wrote a report on a 4/5 graded player? Did they really go in depth about the player was playing against, or the standard of the opposition team? Because as you know, and you've got so much experience, I could be fantastic 1 week, but my challenges might not be as great.
Of course, it plays a huge role in the performance of the player, and also how he should be assessed. But it's important to mention that when you have, as I said earlier, when you have around 70 to 80% coverage of each week of all games played, then the amount of data we had in the end of what we call phase 1 and phase 2 reports was outstanding. Normally we wouldn't have less than 25 to 30 reports in a season per player. So looking at it like this, when you were discussing about players in depth, our job was the same as working on full-time basis in I'm sure in a Premier League at first team level, saying that when we had to decide on which players to recruit, we would be sitting 13 people around the table, including everything from nutritionists to head of sports science, to the scout, to the scouting coordinator, to the coaches, to the football coordinator, etc. And in the end, us as responsible scouts, we had to have updated shadow teams at all times, and we had to produce videos of the players, because we also had full-time analysts who was sent out for what we call the focus players, and we was given the videos by the clubs. So we would have a player card ready with basic information and pros and cons, but also our recommendations in terms of inviting for trial or trying to recruit for next season. We also had players who would rather just stay in the club and wouldn't transfer to Aspire on full-time basis because they were happy in the schools that they were in. Aspire was not only football but also a school program. So we would have this even though we wanted to take them in on full-time.
Good. And I heard at Aspire when you was out there was a good coach called Nuno Ferreira. Is that correct? I know he's watching. So how long did you last at Aspire before you decided to move on? And when you did move on, what was your next step?
I almost lasted almost 3 years in Aspire. My family and I, we decided that it was time to move home. Our girls was, I saw Nuno's comment now. The girls reached an age where we said that it was about time to go home. Our kids, they were now fluent in English in both writing and in speaking. And for my wife, who was at that time getting a bit fed up by being at home all the time and having her nails
and the
having her nails done with her friends at the compound, it was time to move on. And I was almost in Aspire for almost 3 years. And I left at the same time as my good friend Mr. Neil McGuinness, who is now working in Columbus Crew in America. And I think I will say the best thing. It was time to experience something else.
Yeah, and so you went back to Denmark, am I right?
Yes, we went back to Denmark in January 2018, where I started a company called Mellemmand, which does several things, but I wanted to do something different, and I think it was the right time.
And Kenneth, in terms of your company Mellemmand, if that's correct, what company was it? Was you a window fitter? Did you fit doors? Did you buy cars?
Mellemmand is a Danish word for man in the middle, and the basic idea with the company was to create a company which was a football consultancy, helping clubs setting up scouting departments, but also helping in terms of the company sends expert speakers all around the world for places where they want to be inspired. And it also hosts a football conference called the Danish Football Conference. And it educates scouts online as well through the Football Scout Lab as well. So the basic idea was...
sorry, is that just a platform for scouts? Is it a platform for analysts? Is it a platform for coaches? Is it a platform for player? Or is it just the scouts? And also agents. What about agents?
The basic idea was not to create a football agency. I am not, and I've never wanted to be a football agent. I don't envy football agents. I'm sure that a lot of them work very hard for very little money, and very few work very little for a lot of money. And those are the smart ones, apparently. But I wanted to create something because I felt that there was a position, especially in the Scandinavian market, to fit. The basic idea was to also give out on the knowledge in terms of educating scouts who wanted to be scouts. And as it is now, the company has 2 or 3 programs a year, which is for free, where scouts have scout internships, where they're giving access to Instead, and they are being given feedback on a weekly basis by the instructors, which is also me from time to time when I have time to give a hand.
And I think you said something there. So you said it gives opportunities to individuals to kind of learn the processes of scouting. But then how do you link that up? So if I came to you as an intern, what would it look like for me? Do you link back to Danish football clubs where I go in and do my work experience and write reports and give them to the club, or give them back to Mellemmand? How does the internship work for an individual? And does your internships give individuals to gain qualifications. So as you know now, over in England, we have a number of different level 1, level 2, a talent ID 3. So with a talent ID 4 and a talent ID 5. So I'm lucky enough that I'm currently on talent identification level 3. Do your guys get qualified through their internship as well?
The biggest problem is in terms of being qualified, that's only something that the federation can do. So in your case, the FA, and in Denmark, the Danish Football Association. When I started this, the Football Federation did not have a scouting education. They do now.
Okay.
I've been told, and I've also been told, if I want to work as a scout in Denmark, I need to do the same educations as everyone else, which I'm sure many people think is fair.
and in how many levels is
Denmark at the moment? It's only one, and they have. I think they have put in the FA Talent ID 1 basic course as a part of their education as well. I know that the Danish Football Federation are very proactive, and I'm sure that if they haven't already produced level 2, they will do it shortly, so they can keep people on track.
Yeah, and so go on then. So if I come under one of your programs as an intern, what would that program look like for me?
The long story short is that for those who is running it now, the focus is what is built is that there's built 12 online modules where the scouts are being given a program where they, through their access to Instat Scout, is given different tasks to do on a weekly basis, and they have to complete a certain amount of games on video per month with the focus in the task, and they have during the program to watch games live to try to use the basis they have learned from the video scouting on live scouting as well. So they have been introduced to different templates within the company, which they have full access to all through the education, because every template they use is either Excel or PowerPoint, so they can take it home with them afterwards and use it and don't have to pay money for one specific system. And
did you say, is this, so do interns pay to go on the course? And also, if I came in as an intern, am I exposed from under 9s football all the way through to 18s, or is it a case that when I join your internship, I need to maybe specialize in a foundation phase, so maybe 9s, 10s, 11s, and then I get to move up, or is it a case that different individuals can go anywhere in the age?
Long story short, in terms of video, it's of course, because it needs to be a certain level, and Instat don't produce games at under 11, so the video scouting is normally done in different leagues or at youth national team level, and when the scouts they start, or the interns they start, they are being asked if what markets that they could see themselves covering in terms of video and in terms of live. Because the basic idea of giving them this chance is, of course, that the company's idea is if people they reach a certain level, and the company will have contacts which wants to buy access to different levels, that they can use these scouts covering it for them. Otherwise, the basic idea is that once the scouts they reach the end of the internship, that the company helps the scouts from the location they have to reach either an internship with a club, or that they are being pushed into a role at a club because of the network in the company.
Yeah, and also, Kenneth, would you link that in terms of what you're doing? So, if, for example, if you're working at a certain club, would you also allow some of them interns to look out for potential for you as well? So maybe they could ring you and say, right, Kenneth, I found this player for you. Does it work like that also?
I can be 100% honest and say that I think that especially the English club, to my knowledge, they have used interns as a big part of the academy programs and the first team programs in terms of creating a pathway for people into the football clubs. Our way and the company's way to do it is a bit different. If for me, it would be an obvious way to move in terms of my role in Punjab FC, that I want to create a video scout lab, as I call it, and I would have people who is paid to do specific jobs, but I would also, because I want to create a pathway for people in, and I want to have the next ones ready. So for me, it would be obviously an easy way of also creating the pathway for some of those interns, which is in this moment a part of the intern programs in Mellemmand.
Wow, that sounds fantastic. So you run the internship, and what else did you say you do? A conference?
Yeah, we have hosted, while I've been the director of football at Mellemmand, we have hosted 3 Danish football conferences with expert speakers from around Europe, and the next one will be, hopefully, the world will be in a different place in December, but it will be in the 11th and 12th of December in the Brøndby Stadium as well.
Yep. Wow. So you can send my ticket through the post,
You are more than welcome to join, and you will not have to pay as much as everybody else.
I thought for free.
For sure.
We'll talk about it. So you left Aspire, you went back to Denmark, you set up your company like you just explained to us. But I believe that you was working at Wolves as well. How did you get the job at Wolves, and how did they obviously find you?
The long story short is that when I left and when I went back, Mellemmand, we had a lot of dealings with different clubs, and one of these clubs was a club in Austria called Rapid Vienna, which we did a lot of consultancy work for. A good friend of mine, Bernard Scheutemann, who was at that time the academy scout in Austria for Manchester United, he approached me and said that there might be an opportunity to work for Wolves. And Wolves were at that time advertising for creating a scouting network across Europe. And I was asked to put in an application for an interview. And I went in start of July 2018 for an interview in Wolverhampton and met up with Matty Hobbs. And after a process, I was given the opportunity to work at Wolves. Yes.
Wow. And in terms of that job title, what was that job title? Was it a full-time job, or was it part-time, where you run in conjunction with Mellemmand?
Like everything else in football, it's I would say it was a full-time job and less than part-time paid. I think that's the best way to describe it. It was I was given the okay to do the Mellemmand things I was already doing, of course, as long as it was not in competition with activities done for Wolves. So I were not doing scouting or anything. I was only focusing on the conference and setting up the internships as well.
Yeah, and for Wolves, what was your remit? What was your area? Was it just Denmark? Was it just a local town? How big was the scouting network in the European?
It started off with the focus of the Scandinavian countries, and it ended up being me flying also to Belgium and France and Barcelona and Serbia. I think because this was a new department in Wolves, and when I was there, we started 5. I don't know where they are now because I've lost track of them, to be honest. But it was only me and Bernard, who is I think now with Grasshoppers as their sports director. But it was only me and Bernard, who was not living in England at that time. So the process which Matty Hobbs and also Graham Clutton set up was trying to cover as much ground as possible, but also trying in a market with very big clubs playing a big role, that we would try to find our own markets and trying to find the players before everybody else and trying to do the best.
And in terms of that, Kenneth, when you were scouting for Wolves, was you looking at just the first team, the reserves, the 23s, the 16s, the 18s, or was it kind of, obviously you wouldn't really go much lower because you'd have to send them to England and stuff. What kind of age groups was you focusing on?
The job title was under 23 European Scout. The business card said European Scout, so the business card looked better than the title. But the main focus was players before they turned 16 because we
Yep.
could sign them at the age of 16.
And then send them
The problem was
across.
just that all the Scandinavian countries can sign players at the age of 15. So that was difficult, and they also know and want several big payments in terms of the players if they have a decent level. So it started at one point.
Kenneth, and sorry, mate. And in terms of compensation for a 16-year-old in Scandinavia, what kind of money are you talking?
Depends on the level of the player, and it depends of the size of the club. I think one of the players which was focused from a lot of the clubs in Europe was a player called Christian Rasmussen, who was playing in Nordsjælland and was sold from Nordsjælland to Ajax. And I think Nordsjælland has said that his price was between €2.5 million and €3 million.
And what age was he when he went?
16.
Okay, cool. Because it's really interesting because I'm good friends with Eric Bosma, and he works at SC Heerenveen as the academy manager, and they do a lot of business in Scandinavia and stuff like that, and they're very successful with their scouting network, and they provide a great opportunity to get players in early, put them in the first team, and kind of sell them on. So yeah, I know that they do a lot of work in Scandinavia. And how long did you spend at Wolves?
A little under a year. I started in August and finished when the season finished after.
Yeah, and in terms of looking back now from Wolves to Aspire and Bromley, your first job, what do you think the biggest difference was between the three clubs?
Different countries, different culture, different ways of working. It was you cannot compare anything to what happened in Qatar, because you had so many people working and coming from so many backgrounds. When we had staff meetings at under 14 or under 16, 17 level, we would be sitting 12, 13 people. So it was more than what I experienced when working in Brøndby around the first team. And I think the thing you could compare is that it's just the eyes that watches the players, and when no matter what club you work for or what federation you scout for, it's always going to be about the boys and the balls in terms of their ability to handle the balls and handle the game, the opponents, the different levels and the benchmark. So for me the biggest difference in it was basically that Brøndby was at one level, Aspire was nothing to compare, and Wolves was at the beginning of creating academy scouting in Europe, which I'm sure they had not done before they hired Matt at that time. So different experience at different levels.
Did obviously scouting for Wolves in Europe, and like you said, you used to cover a lot of games and probably a lot of travelling. Was there ever times when you was frustrated because, like you said, you might have watched the player through your eyes and thought, you know what, this lad here is top, but then because of maybe the communication stream back to the UK and the amount of time it took, was there frustrations, or was there ever a player that you personally really liked, and unfortunately you lost out to a rival club because maybe it just didn't go as smooth?
We were not that many, so we were actually, I think we were 5 guys, and in these days where you have WhatsApp, the communication went smooth. One of the things which Matt set up, which really worked well, was the act for me flagging a player to Bernard flying in, or to Graham flying in, or to Matt flying in would be quite quick. Of course, like every other club, when you have to pay compensation, it's not only the head of the academy recruitment who has to say yes. So you will also have the budget in terms of what you can do, and it needs to go to, in Wolf's case, the CEO Jeff. And I know that Wolves, we managed to get players in, but they were, I think, because of the years before, they had been a bit used to being able to take some of the players from different places, only have to pay the compensation and not having to pay a transfer fee. So I think it was a process going from one place to a different place.
Oh, very, very interesting. So you spent, you said just maybe under a year at Wolves Football Club, still running your own company in addition. Then you got a move to Round Glass Punjab, is that correct?
It's called Punjab FC, yes.
All right. So where did the Round Glass come
the
from?
Round Glass is the owner of the company. Basically, the Round Glass purchased 50% of Punjab FC last season,
Okay.
and have now also taken over the last 50%. So now 100% full ownership. And when I'm smiling, it's because that the company trademark is Round Glass, which is the owner. The football club is called Punjab FC, but I've also seen on the social media that it's called RG Punjab FC or Round Glass. So what's going to be the official title once the new season breaks off? I don't know, to be honest. I'm just happy being a part of the vision which Mr. Sunny Singh has set in place.
And is the first team manager Damien Matthews?
No, the under 18 head coach is Damien Matthew. The first team coach is also one of your good English mates, is Mr. Curtis Fleming.
Oh, right, yeah, no, because I know Damien Matthews, so I had the pleasure of working with him and spent some time with him. So how are you finding it? Obviously in Punjab, you haven't moved to India, have you?
I have. I have moved to India. Yes, I'm.
Is this live?
No,
from
it's
India?
not, because the Danish the Danish head of state, she asked everybody with a Danish passport to get on with and come home. So I've been back with my family for more than a month now, and India they have been on lockdown for almost 4 weeks now, and they have just changed it to being locked down until the 3rd of May on a complete lockdown. So happy to be back with my family, but also looking forward going back to India, my new home.
Yeah. Okay, mate. So when you've gone over to India, what is your job title? And again, how did you get that job? So Denmark to India is a bit of a culture shock, a different environment. You're probably now exposed to different players, a complete different way of scouting. How did that come about?
It came about by the guy who was the startup at Aspire Academy, a guy called Michael Brown. Michael was the first technical director in the Aspire program. Michael is the technical director of Punjab FC. Michael hired an assistant, which is a guy called Andrew Cooper from Leeds. Andy and we worked in Aspire. Andy as a coach and me as a scout, and Andy he gave me a call at one time and said if I had anybody who would be looking to go to India for this project, then I should give him a call back, and I said, yeah, we'll do, mate. And I hung up the phone and said, I'm not quite sure if he was asking me if I was interested or if I had to find a candidate for him. So I mentioned it briefly to my wife, and she said, I don't know what the fuck you're doing, but give him a call back and ask him what he wants. So I gave Andy a call and said, mate, what's up? And he said, of course, if you want, let's try and push
Kenneth, hold it there. This is going to cut out. Guys, just bear with us. Gone over. Just waiting to connect you, mate. Hey, that means you've gone over 1 hour. It's amazing, Kenneth. People don't realise that this week I've done a live every night, and I'm sitting on like a little fisherman chair. I've been sitting on this chair for nearly about 10 hours this week. It's unbelievable. The conversations just flow, and when I speak to people and ask them to come onto Soccer Social to speak, I only think the conversation is going to last 40 minutes, but it just flows so nice. It's unbelievable. Sorry. So you've gone over to Punjab, not Punjab. You've gone over to India to work for Punjab FC. We need some more in depth. What is it like? What are the players like? How do you recruit? How local can you recruit? How big is the country? Because it's huge. How many different considerations now are you facing? Because you've gone from Denmark to Qatar, back to Denmark, now to India.
That's going to take a while, but I'll try and make it short. India has been, until now, it's been treating me very well. I have been so lucky to be in a group of people with some extraordinary people. One of the reasons which I chose to go was not only because of the vision of the owner, but also the project which I was looking to join. But the people who is working for the club is amazing, and when I came back to my family around Christmas and we had I was smiling and I was looking forward flying back to India to really crack on with it. But the long story short is that I've been given the chance to build a scouting network across the country.
Wow.
And we are building not only the academy setup in terms of hiring scouts all over the country, but we will also structure the senior scouting department. So we will be hopefully a benchmark, not only in India, but in Asia in terms of how we will structure and organize our scouting academy-wise, but also in terms of first team.
And in terms of Punjab SC, whereabouts is it based within India?
It's based in...
And how far are you scouting? And what's the quality of the players that you've got in at the moment? And what age groups as well?
That's a lot of questions. The club is based in the Punjab region in Chandigarh, which is just on the outline of Punjab. And the academy is from, at this moment right now, is from under 10 to the reserves and also now with the first team as well. And we are set up in the way saying the players, they live at a hostel, which we run. The players, they go to school, which we run.
Wow.
And so meaning we will have, last season we had 140 kids and we will have...
Across all age groups?
Across all age groups, yes.
Yeah.
And we scout all over the country. And as you said, the country is bigger. I think actually in size-wise, it's bigger than Europe. And when I fly to just to make an example, I've been 2 times to Kolkata. It's almost a 3 hours flight to go to a different region to scout. And so the basic idea is to set up local scouting with a local lead in all the bigger regions, and the local lead will have 2 or 3 scouts helping him as well.
Brilliant. And in terms of finances, who finances all of this? The owner?
The owner, which is Mr. Sunny Singh, who is the owner of Round Glass, is the guy responsible for the founding, yes.
Wow. And like you said, so they'll have a football model,
yeah,
education model. And in terms of competition, who's your biggest competition in and around the region? And where do you get your fixtures from?
One of the development points of Indian football in general is organization. You have a couple of hotspots in Kolkata, in Kerala, in Goa, and in Mumbai, where the football is crazy. So they have a history of football. So in those regions, they have different tournaments at academy and senior level. In India, the academy is participating in under 13, under 15, and under 18 tournaments called the I-Leagues. And one of the development points we are focused on improving in the future is to set up more structured tournaments in our own region and set up chances or possibilities to invite clubs from India in other regions, or clubs from other countries to come and play us, or we could come and play, because we have 3 teams across all ages, where the most of the academies we compare ourselves with, they only have the age groups which can compete in the I-League, under 13, 15 and 18.
And in terms of, would you ever host, or do you ever host open training sessions where the local children and players can travel in over a set period or a set distance to come and train, so then you can use it as an identification tool as well?
The club did open trials last year in almost all the regions of the country, also locally. of course, this virus thing has set us back like everywhere else in the world. And one of the things we need to attend to when we get back is we need to attend to not only the players which we have on what we call our action list, but also the local Punjabi players, which we need to find a way to give them a chance to show their talent in what kind of tournaments we will organize to give them this chance.
And what would maybe a player in Damien Matthews under-18s team look like compared to your previous experiences working for Wolves, Aspire, and Denmark? How would you kind of where would you kind of put him in terms of a benchmark? And what are they like in terms of are players in Punjab? Are they very athletic? Are you going more tactical? Is it more technical? How does it kind of work in terms of their coaching program as well?
First of all, the coaching program is set up by Michael Brown and also with the help of Andy. And that's, of course, European based, if you can say it, in terms of the inspiration and the experience those two have. A player, one thing which I need to mention is that what I see all over the country is that you have two-footed players. You have a generation of players in India who plays on the streets, who plays in the back of their houses, who plays on the beach, who plays near the lake, who plays with on the ground, on the dirt, and they are like, I'm sure what your parents and their parents have told in the stories 30 and 40 years ago. This is what you see in India, because it's a country where cricket is the sport which is most known, but football is definitely played in everywhere. But the parity in the country in terms of giving the players the chance to play on good surfaces is not strong. So you have players with huge potential and huge talent, which is two-footed. You also have players which is physical strong. You have players which are agile, and you have players with tremendous pace. What you lack in most of the regions is players with great tactical awareness. And what I call football
just because mind. But then like you said, isn't it, it's kind of getting the balance. So like that player that you might have mentioned that might have had loads of excellent experiences, like you said, playing across different surfaces, being creative with the way they're playing and etc. But then that's kind of sort of sacrifice you might have to take top end, that tactically they might not be as cute or as aware because of the previous experience that they've had coming through, isn't it?
I caught myself when I went around the country and scouted that I was looking more and more into football minds and football brains, because we have a lot of players who are talented and physical, very strong. So I was looking a lot into finding players who I could see could identify the next situation and could identify, okay, now we need to be calm and we need to take the ball and play it back, because you find a lot of the teams are they're playing on such a high pace and intensity for long periods of time, which they're able to do. But you don't find many teams who are able to have a feeling of the game and being able to control it, because it's just what I call in Denmark chubang ball. So that's something to keep an eye on in terms of profiles.
Yeah. And in terms of the club, you must have created your own profile of what type of player you want to bring into the setup. A great question here comes from Murray Jones. So Murray Jones is head of 16s at Millwall Football Club. He said, "Is there a grassroots infrastructure?"
There is a grassroots infrastructure. The difficulty to explain is just that our region Punjab region is around 275 to 80 kilometers in the diameter. One way, because of poor ability to travel, it will take 8 hours to drive by car. There won't be any buses and there won't be any trains. So, which is also one of the reasons we need to put the players into our academy and host them as well. There is a grassroots system, and one of the things which was one of the key factors for me joining is that round glass is a holistic approach, and is a holistic company which runs different apps for companies where they set up programs for the employees through their apps. And they are also very much involved in the local community in terms of helping the different villages in setting up, in terms of helping the farmers and all these things. So we have different grassroots centers in the villages, and we have, of course, with a lot of room to improve. But the thoughts are there, and the centers are there, and we definitely need to be better to organize this to get the most value out of it for everybody.
Yeah, and you, someone put a question here. So Michael Griffin, he's an academy coach at Aston Villa, had experience at other academies in the UK as well. He said, who funds the grassroots setup in India?
In our region, we do.
Wow. And how many clubs would that fund?
The grassroots program last season had, I believe, 18 grassroots centers. And I know next year, one of the things we're looking into is to having a grassroots program with a huge amount of centers, where we want to provide what we can in terms of helping as many players to be able to play. But we want to change it a bit, so we will call it more development centers, and maybe go from 18 to 10 or 12, where we're going to put full-time staff members coaching the boys in the different centers.
Wow, it sounds like a massive operation, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is.
But,
it is.
And again, I bet there's so many players that are undiscovered. It's just getting around. Just before we move on to this question, because we've got another one here from Lance at Pro Academy Footballers. If you had to travel to Mumbai, for example, and you like the look of the player and you want to take him back to Punjab, how easy is it to get the player and take him back? And also, how in depth do you go into the family history or other considerations in their personal life to help make that decision that he's the correct one to take over to Punjab?
Of course, we need to have a look at the whole picture in terms of making a decision. In the end, the money in India is not as big as it is with the people asking the question. So if I go to Mumbai, or if one of our scouts and coaches go to Mumbai and find a player where they put the head on the table and say, this player is better than everyone we have, and potential is there, then of course we need to be able to act on it quickly. And like everywhere else in the world, it's depending on the age, of course. They can have signed a contract, and in India the parents are able to sign the contracts with the clubs at an early age.
What age could that be?
I actually believe that they can sign them at any age they want, and not saying that they can sign them when they're born, but I see clubs that are signing players for 4 or 5 year contracts when they are 10 and 11 years old.
So in terms of that, so there is compensation again, or not?
If we want to take the player from a contract, yes, we'll have to pay compensation, yes.
And in terms of the compensation relating to your experiences in Europe, what figures might we be talking?
It's not worth mentioning.
Really?
Yeah, it's not. It's of course when you look at it, you need to look at it. You need to look at it as a scale, and say that if an academy budget in a Premier League club is I don't know, £5 million, just to make an example, then maybe the academy budget in India is £500,000. And in India, the salary of the employees is different compared to England, also because the rent and the living expenses is nothing to compare as well. So that's something to have in mind when you look at it. So when you ask me for a figure in terms of the compensation, it's of course different if we want to take a player from a competing club in Mumbai FC, to make an example. We would have to pay a substantial amount compared to what we would normally pay if it's a home academy which is owned by a private person.
Yeah, so there's not. It's just interesting because then there isn't a set figure per year the individual's been and etc. So it fluctuates. It depends who you're doing business with, and
Yes.
also like looking back, and you've had so much experience again, especially in Aspire, where you said you had so many foot soldiers and the infrastructure was so big, and you had so much data on the individuals. How hard is it now when you might be traveling over to Mumbai, for example, to collect data on the individual? Or is it something now in India that because it might be hard collecting video footage or certain data you required, you don't go down that path?
The basic idea of us trying to build an academy scouting program across the country is exactly to be local. So we want to hire the best scouts local to
Yep.
make sure that this information and this data which you are referring to is something we can collect, so we can hopefully take as many good decisions as possible. Also knowing that when you do work, you also make mistakes from time to time. But of course, to have a best possible picture, we will try to gather it from people that are familiar with the ground and that are familiar with the players and the parents and the families they come from. You also need to understand sometime that in different areas of India, players will be more than like to stay because they are happy with their families, and in other regions, you will find families who will be very happy if you take the players and give them the chance, not only for football development, but also for
Social as well.
social and personal
Yeah.
and school development as well.
Wow. Thank you very much, Kenneth. We've got a question here from Lance. It says, Kenneth, thank you for your time. Very insightful journey. In India, how does TV sponsorship compare to Europe? And how are the leagues configured given obviously the distances and the traveling distance within the country geographically?
In India, it's now in senior football divided between an ISL and an I-League. This season, our team was in I-League. I don't have a saying in terms of the figures, but of course the ISL, which is the at this time the number one league, the money is of course bigger than it is in I-League. In terms of how it's structured, you have the ISL first league, you have I-League second league, and you have a second division as well. We had a team in both I-League and second division this year. The difference in India compared to other places is that the tournament is very short, and it's senior is played from I think it's from middle of October, and the ISL season actually managed to finish just when the outbreak came of the coronavirus. So the final game was played without spectators, but if I don't remember correctly, the semifinals weren't.
Well, so it's a short period they play through.
Yeah,
Okay,
6 months.
and then what will happen after the 6 months? Just what will be the main sport and the main focus? Just cricket, the heat.
I must be honest with you, saying I'm not strong in why they've organized it as they have, but it could seem because the cricket season is also very short, and they've also had hockey as a sport which they have a lot of focus on, and you have one of the things we will focus on within our club and company is that hockey is also going to be a part of the club's activities going forward. But in terms of why it's structured as it is, I honestly don't know.
So how does that leave you on a personal level? So if the seasons are so short, once the season is over, will you travel back to Denmark to obviously spend time with the family and still work from there, or will you still stay there for a period of time just so you can kind of make progressions and pre-plan for the following season?
Where we are right now, normally the academies would be playing in the start of May and almost the whole month of May. They will be playing the finals in I-League, meaning that the different regions would be put in one place for 14 days. So you would have under 13 in Goa, and you would have under 15 in Kerala, and you would have under 18 in Northeast, and the winners and the runners up and some third places would be playing one country state tournament in one location across the age groups for the month of May. You will have vacation in June. You will have first team starting up in July, mid of July. The academy will have a long preseason starting up in August, or end of July, start of August. But one of the things right now is that the structure is that they have what they call baby leagues, which is tournaments from under 8 to under 12, is running from August and until actually November, December. So you have, and you also in the different regions, you would have locally run tournaments on different age groups. So scouting never rests, I've been told. So I'm sure I'll have plenty to attend.
Brilliant. And there was a question there, and I know you kind of touched on it in terms of the leagues, but Murray Jones said, what exit routes are there for the academy players when they get 18 plus?
There is a lot of clubs and academies which don't have a first team. And one of the things we have now is that we have a pathway. And when I'm approached by agents, and if there's any agents listening into this, I'm always saying that please put some time into looking at the level of the league and some attention to how the country is run and foresee if you can see your player being interested in being a part of this project. But our project is that we want to promote the best Indian talent, and our owner's vision is to have an Indian national team playing in the World Cup in 2030, and he wants the 50% of this Indian team to be players from Punjab FC. So we are focused on building it the right way from the start, and we are focused on making a pathway where we, of course, always will keep an eye on players performing well at the other clubs and also at under 18 and reserves team level, even I League or ISL, if we can nick a potential strong Indian player. But our main concern is to create a pathway for our own Indian players.
Wow, Kenneth, I think that is a fantastic insight to what you've said so far. Really, really good. So Murray Jones said, would you use the Aspire model? So learnings from some of the stuff from Aspire, would you take that forward to help that end goal of reaching the World Cup in 2030?
I think we all apply in our daily work all the experiences we have gathered during our path until now on our journey. From my side, I learned a lot in my years in Aspire and in Qatar, and work with a lot of good people, which I'm either working with now again and hope to work with in the future as well. But the model they had in Aspire was a country program, which what we are running is a football club, which is of course regional based, but we want to recruit players from the whole country. And in Aspire, we didn't have competition because it was the country. In Punjab FC, we will of course have competition, and we will have, even though we identify good players in different regions, there will be good academies in their regions, which some of the players will of course choose instead of go and traveling away from their families if they have this option.
Yeah. And Kenneth, is there opportunities for you guys at Punjab to tour back to Europe? So using your connections at Bromby, Wolves, the UK, and different parts of the world, will you get the boys when they're ready out into Europe and other Asian companies or wherever they meet to really push them and see where they are in terms of the realism of the level maybe in different countries?
I think our owner and our senior management team is very much aware that we need our players to play decent opponents, and they need to be training on a high level and playing regularly on a higher level. So we will of course look into the opportunities we have, not only to travel abroad, but we will also be building a state-of-the-art academy and first team facility with everything in-house, pitches, learning facilities, and also sports science facilities, etc. Like some might say a mini version of Aspire, but we will I'm sure the owner and again the management will have their own idea about how it should look, but we will be looking into models as well, where we will either host tournaments, or we would be looking to send players abroad on either tournaments, or giving them the options to grow in other environments as well, for the better of our own program and the players as well.
Wow, excellent. And then there's a question there come up from Nuno. I'm going to struggle to read this one. It says, what's your opinion about FC Midtjylland, or whatever it's called, analytics scouting philosophy based in the Moneyball theory?
I think.
How do you pronounce that club?
It's called FC Midtjylland. I'm going to try and look for a political answer, and the people who knows me knows that I'm not a strong political person. So I will say that to apply the Moneyball theory in practice, you need to be able to choose from the top draw, and I'm sure that even though Midtjylland have done, and through smart odds and the company owner and the club owner of Mr. Benham in Brentford, I'm quite sure that if you look at the recruitment track which you have in Midtjylland and Brentford, I'm sure that looking just at the Danish players which Brentford they have taken, I would find it very difficult to believe that those players have been top draw in terms of data. I'm quite sure that they have been chosen and recruited in Brentford because of the head coach and the assistant coach knowledge of the players. And I'm also quite sure, looking at players in Midtjylland, that if they have signed players, they would be looking data-wise on players from number 350 to 378 on the list of data, because the data produced needs to be transparent, and it needs to be benchmarked towards the level which the players are screen scouted and monitored for a longer period. I have huge respect for people doing things in a different way, and both Midtjylland and also Brentford this season have done amazing. I think in the terms of Brentford being able to compete and play football on this level is huge credit to the whole club, not only the coaching staff but the club and the way it's run. In Midtjylland, this season they have been able to win games where they've been poor, which is a sign of strength, and they have a culture of winning, and they are doing an amazing job. But in terms of recruitment, I would make a question mark in terms of how much they actually use data in the players they recruit. They might use it as one leg on the chair in terms of making the final say what to do. Yep. But I don't think it plays as big a role as they started by telling people. That's my honest opinion.
Question here, another question coming from Murray Jones. It says, will you take African players into Punjab like Aspire?
When he asked this question, he must mean that Aspire, they took African players. So that's a question in a different day, I think. But as I said before, our ambition is to create a pathway for the best Indian players. Yeah. I'm not sure how things will progress in the years to come. If the owner thinks he can do something good with an academy in Denmark or in Africa or in Estonia, then I will from the chair I will be sitting. I will do my very best to integrate my work into making sure that we will have the best players and the best output of that. Just to make a comment in terms of Aspire. Aspire had a project called the Aspire Football Dreams, and I can say that in the years I worked in Qatar, we did not recruit any African players to the system. I know that in the previous years before that they had players from the Aspire Football Dreams who came on scholarships in the program and played and was a part of the Aspire teams. But in the years I was there, from 2015 to the end of 2017, it was not a part of the program.
Brilliant, Kenneth. And for me, because I've now made the transition into scouting and recruitment. And for any viewers at home, any young aspiring coaches or anyone who wants to kind of make that crossover to recruitment, what would be your advice? Obviously, I know you deliver internships, so you probably want everyone to come onto your website and check it out, which no doubt we will. But what other advice would you give to scouts, and what key things have kind of resonated to you?
I think that scouting is something that you find more and more people interested in taking up as their profession. I think a lot of people think it's easy, as I'm sure that many people think it's easy to become an agent and get players and earn a fortune. What I tell people is that it's taken me 10 years of watching between 10 and 12 games a week before I reached a level where there was clubs in my country who was looking into giving me a chance to work full time. I was at that time before the time, if you can say it like this, and was lucky to be given a chance. Also good, of course, but I was fortunate to be in the right place at the right time. And my advice to everybody would be to try to watch as much as possible, to create a platform of knowledge, because when you have discussions, it's not about believing, it's about knowing and being able to benchmark. So when you're looking at a player, you might say this is a good player, but you always need to have the benchmark to say, okay, he's good when he plays for Crewe, but when the scout of Manchester United, he comes, he will say, yeah, he's a good player on this level, but he's not anywhere near the level which Manchester United is looking to recruit. So create a benchmark and watch as many games as possible, and attend webinars, attend internships, try to be all over the place, try to find your way in. My experience is that the ones with a huge heart to learn, but also the ambition and the willingness to listen at the right time, that they will always be given a chance, because hopefully you will find more people who has the same view on it as me, who said that I was given a chance back in 2006 by the chief scout in Copenhagen, Lars Høyer, who's still there. He took me in and gave me a shot of working for Copenhagen, which I'm until this day very grateful for. And Lars is not only a good scout, but he's also a fantastic person. And I hope that when people, they speak about me in 10 or 12 or 15 or 20 years, they would maybe be saying he speaks too much, but they will also be saying that he's given a lot of people the chance to find not only the same path, but to find their own path.
Well, and I think you've given us a great insight tonight, and I can't wait to watch this back as well. Just one last one for me. When you go scouting, do you believe that there's certain periods of the game that could be more important to watch than others? I.e., so, for example, you might go to some games, and we've all been to games where a scout might come in 5 minutes before kickoff, watch a period of time, then go for a cup of tea, then miss maybe the last 5-10 minutes of the first half. Do you feel, with your experiences, that there's some part, and also scouts, well, some scouts, they'll get to 70 minutes and go, okay, I'm gone. Now, do you feel, from a personal opinion, that some parts of the game are more important to watch than others? Obviously, I know that the state of the game is going to affect that, but due to sometimes the first 20 might be a little bit more quicker, then it might slow down, then it might pick up again after half time. How do you feel that from a personal insight?
I think you said it to start with, that you will have moments in the games where the winger, he would be playing a left back or a right back who is kicking him all the time, and you would be wanting to see, when the ball is in the area, how does this winger prepare? You would also see how does he react after having been kicked 10 times and not being given a free kick. And it does not depend if it's in the start of the game or in the end. In the end, for me, it's very important to see who takes responsibility when the team is losing. It's important for me to see who is the one player that the other players, they look for if they need help. And it's also important for me to see that when you reach the last 5 minutes of the game, the score is 1-1. Who is the one who is stepping up and is willing to take the penalty at a crucial time, and who are the ones who's trying to hide, and also still having in mind that players, and this is a very popular discussion, that you will have players in the different young age groups, where you will have players that are, when they only play one age group, that there could be 11 to 12 months difference in between players. Not only in physical growth, but also in mind. And you will have, when you have from the under 15 to under 17, you might have players who will be almost 2 years in the difference. And under 19, you'll have players being moved up in this. So for me, I don't think you can say that there is one important time during the game that is more important than anything else. I think the right answer to give is that you need to be there before to prepare, and you need to finish. But also having in mind that some scouts in some positions have to cover a certain amount of games, and sometimes it's some people in different positions. They also sometimes have to show their faces in different venues, because you might be looking to recruit a specific player, and you want to make sure that the player and the parents of the player have seen that you are there. I've always said that if I had a meeting with a player on a Wednesday, I wanted to make sure that I saw the player playing the weekend. And you might have 3 or 4 meetings in a week, especially around recruitment time, where you would have to divide your time, or at least make sure that the parents and the players, they saw some people with the club's logo on, so that it would be in mind. I've always said that if you come into a recruitment meeting and you have to convince the player that you know him, then it's not going to turn out well. The discussion should never be on the pros and cons of the player. It should always be on the feeling or in the stomach of the player, and also the feeling you get as the man in charge for the recruitment. And of course, giving the parents the feeling that you're not only understanding the level of the player on the pitch, but you're also understanding the level on the person on the pitch and off the pitch, and what the parents is looking for in a potential move to your club. So you will have different things to attend to at different moments.
Wow. And Kenneth, just before we wrap up, unless any more questions come in, so viewers at home, please feel free, if you have just joined us, to put in any questions. We've covered a fantastic pathway, very intriguing and very insightful. And I love the way how, Kenneth, you've been so open with myself and the viewers. I was going to say, what was I going to say? How can we find out about, so you mentioned that you have a company which you run. How can we, the viewers, find this company?
I'm not involved in running the company anymore, because I'm, of course, 100% working for Punjab FC. I am still running the football conference, Danish football conference, which is a part of Mellemmand. So in some way, I am, of course, involved and also helping out with the interns from time to time. But the company, in terms of internships, is a company called Mellemmand.com, and it has a profile both on Instagram, but especially the LinkedIn profile is what's used as our experience with running the company, is that you have the most interactions on LinkedIn, but it can be found on Mellemmand.com.
Okay, so I need to get a LinkedIn account. I'll put that one down. Mellemmand. And in terms of resources, or have you got any, maybe a scouting template that you could share with us, or is there?
Of course.
Could we find it through Mellemmand? And if any viewers at home, if they've got any additional questions, is it okay if they send them to me? I'll send them,
of course,
onto yourself, because it'd be interesting to see what your scouting template looks like compared to, obviously, every club is different. Right, we've got a question come in, so we'll take the last one. So it says, "Hi Kenneth, what is your end goal in the industry? Do you wish to run your own club one day, or maybe director of football, or a head of youth development at the highest club?"
Who's asking the question?
I don't know. Do you know him? Is it Ali?
No, I can't see.
Maybe he missed most of the interview, but yeah. So what is your maybe answer the top two? So what is your end goal in the industry?
I've learned that I'm a person which is is very much into projects, and I'm very much into playing a big role rather than playing a small role. So for me, one thing I've learned in my experience working in football is that I wanna involve myself with people I like to work with, and I wanna be involved in projects which has the same ambition as I have, and I always play to win. So I want to be involved in projects where it's not about becoming number 6 in the league or in the country. It's about becoming the best ones.
Yep.
And for me, the name of the role is not important. For me, the right answer to give is that for me, it's the people involved in the project. It's the feeling I have of the people in the project. And for me, to be honest, I'm hoping that football will take me and it will take my family all around the world, and it will give us experiences. It will give me experience, but it will also give me and my family some experiences we wouldn't have if it wasn't for football. I'm very happy with being working in India, and I'm hoping not only for me as an individual, but also for the whole world, that hopefully somebody will find a cure, and we will be without this virus hopefully as soon as possible. It's very difficult to be contracted to a club in India and living in Denmark. But my end goal is not defined, and I don't think I'll ever find an end goal, because for me it's about the project, and it's about what it is. Because I don't think in these days you find I have a club which is my club, or I only want to work for this club, I only want to play for this club. I think you'll find more and more people, especially seen in England, where if you fire the manager, you fire 20 or 25 people, the background staff, anybody. And for me, also knowing this, I also need to acknowledge my role, and I will be giving it my best. I want to listen and learn from whoever who can contribute, and I will go where life in football takes me. And I'm hoping to once I'll be sitting and being 70 years old, I will be sitting and screaming at the young kids to take off their boots before they go into the dressing room of my local club, like everybody else in football. But the end goal is just to enjoy the ride.
Brilliant. Right, Kenneth. Like I said, on behalf of Soccer Social London, myself and Western Parks, we thank you so much for attending the live chat today. Viewers at home, this chat does stay on our Instagram for 24 hours. Then after 24 hours, unfortunately, it goes. Kenneth, like you said, if you ever come over to the UK, you're more than welcome to come and visit us, and we can kind of show you what we kind of do at our local clubs, although that you probably know. And once again, just thank you for being so open, so honest, a great insight to recruitment and scouting across the world. Looking through your CV and looking back, like you said, you've had so many experiences, so much, and for you to share the pathway with me, and I've only met you via Instagram through Nuno Pereira. It's amazing, and I can't thank you enough. And it was amazing. So
thank you very much for having me, James. It was a good experience, and I can only hope that you will have great success in this. It's I think one of the things we need to acknowledge, and me and on everybody being so fortunate to work in football, is that we once we were the ones who were having 4 jobs and trying to make ends meet in terms of focusing on football, and you have so many people who wants to reach the full-time level in football. So I'm always more than happy to share, and of course within what's reasonable in time, I will always be looking to answer people's requests when I have time and the chance to do it. So thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, Kenneth, thank you very much. Don't forget my ticket to Denmark to come to the Danish Football Conference.
If you come next time, the ticket is on me, so you're more than welcome.
First class.
Good.
Yeah, Kenneth, top stuff, mate. Listen, I'll let you crack on. Enjoy your Friday, enjoy your weekend. Like you said, hopefully the virus will clear off. For the viewers back at home, we are live again on Monday evening with another guest speaker. So we've got a real interesting one next week. So yeah, we've got Fraser Frank, so a young professional who had to retire due to a heart condition. So his story is quite sad, but he's also now gone into recruitment. So that'll be a fantastic story that he'll be sharing to the viewers. So other than that, guys, enjoy your weekend. Stay safe. Kenneth, top man, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks, James.
See you later.